we live in a really competitive society, and it's something that begins from early on, like from very early ages. We're encouraged to get in these competitions, and we all join sports, and we play sports, and there's a really healthy component to it, but there's also a really messed up component that can develop in it when the game and the competition becomes more about proving who you are than it actually is about playing the game. And I think it speaks to these broken connections that we have. Like, part of the competition speaks to the fact that we long to be together and we long to accomplish something together. But at the same time, it also exposes that we've got these really negative, dark areas of how, like, we're trying to beat each other, and our games end up being more about who we're not than the fun that we're supposed to be having and the fellowship and the community we're supposed to be having in them. And I think part of what happens in our competitive nature is we end up not seeing that we're playing against people anymore. We're not doing something necessarily with people anymore, but it begins to cause us to categorize things. So the person on the other team, well, they're not just an opponent, but they're an enemy. And the person on my team, they're not just like a friend or someone that I'm working with, but they're an ally. And they're not really people anymore, but they're just things towards proving who you are. And I think central to Jesus' ministry was breaking down these walls that we have against labeling people as friend and enemy. So this one guy Jesus heals, because of the disease that he has, like, he's kicked out of his community. He's not around his friends. He's not around his family. And after Jesus heals him, yes, there's the physical healing, but even more than that, Jesus' healing restores the man to his community. Jesus' healing brings the man back into a place where he was outside of. So what Jesus has going on in his ministry is breaking down this idea that we have that, like, some people belong and then some people don't. And we just need to surround ourselves with the people that belong and do the best we can to get rid of the people that don't belong. And I think this attitude is absolutely toxic, to try just surround yourself with people that are like you and then get rid of those who aren't like you. Two of Jesus' followers, one of them was named Levi and then the other one was named Simon the Zealot. Like, they would have been at the opposite ends of the spectrum. Like, Matthew had these ideas about how things were supposed to work, and then Simon had these ideas about how things were supposed to work. And because of that, like, if they weren't followers of Jesus, they would have hated each other and they would have fought constantly. But somehow, while they're following Jesus, in the course of being with Jesus, they learn to lay aside these differences. They learn to start focusing on something bigger and something more going on. So what would have been differences that would have divided them before, they're able to push them to the background because now they're realizing that there's something more going on. In Jesus, something more is going on. So these petty differences we have are able to be put aside, and they're not as important anymore. And Matthew doesn't have to prove this about himself, and Simon doesn't have to prove this thing about himself. But there's a unity that happens when they become followers of Jesus. There's this writer named Paul, and as he's writing to a church in Rome, he says, like, we're either going to be slaves of destruction or we're going to be slaves of Christ, which is incredibly powerful and strong language, because as Paul understood slavery, like, it was different than the way we had it now. It's like the way a person would go into slavery in Paul's day was there would typically be this debt that you couldn't pay. And then what would happen first is you would sell everything that you had, like everything, all of your possessions. And then you would sell your family land. And the translation, once you sold your family land, it's like your past is gone, because your forefathers, your ancestors, have been living on this land for hundreds and hundreds of years. And now you've sold it. It's gone. So you've sold your past. And then after you sell your things and your land, you'd sell your kids. Like, you'd sell your kids to pay for this debt. And it's just like your future. Your future's gone so instantly because of what happened. Like, your past and your future are gone. And then after you sell your kids, you would sell your wife. So the rock and the foundation, like, the woman who runs your house and keeps things in order and keeps your life going straight, she's gone. And then finally, after you've sold all this stuff, you'll actually sell yourself. And the general message is the person going to the one they're selling their life to and saying, my life won't be okay until I turn everything I have over to you. Like there's just so much and I can't manage it and I can't deal with it and I can't take care of it. So I'm going to turn it over to you. So what Paul is saying is like there are some people who for them, when hard times come, the response is going to be sin and it's going to be destruction. They're going to go back to the same bad habits and the same garbage and the same hell that they've been walking around with all the time. So they're going to be slaves to sin. Their only escape, their only hope is going to be in this destructive force that's like just going to rip them apart. But then for other people, when they realize like, I can't make it, they're going to turn to Jesus. They're going to turn to the one who loved them so completely that he gave his life for them and he gave everything for them. So Paul's understanding of slavery, like when we're slaves to Christ, is actually that there's great freedom because we're placing all of our faith, all of our hope, all of our trust, all of our confidence into the one who loves us so completely that he gave everything for us, that he gave himself for us, that he would die for us to give us new life. Sin doesn't give the life that it promises. So being a slave to sin will never work. Paul says, Jesus, that's life. There couldn't be a decision that makes more sense than that. This freedom is powerful. Like, I wonder if we really get that in Jesus we have a new identity. That we don't have to prove ourselves all the time. And we can accept people as they actually are because we escape from this sinful trap of seeing everyone as like us or not like us. We escape from the pit of like having an us and them mentality all the time. Like, this is the freedom of Jesus. This is why being a follower of Jesus is huge. This is what happened with Matthew and Simon, is that like they would have been enemies, but in Christ, they found they had so much in common because they were both passionate about being alive. They were both passionate about following Jesus. So when they gave their lives over to that, like even though they had differences, because they had the same core identity in Jesus, like they couldn't have been more the same. So my brothers and sisters, as you live, remember that there are all kinds of things that could divide us, but in Christ we have a new life, a new unity. So while you're going through, remember that the love of God is all over creation, and it's uniting us in a new and powerful way. So go and live in unity.